He moved, too fast for thought. The distance between us collapsed in a single motion, and suddenly the room was no longer something I stood in. It was something pressed against me. My back hit the wall. The impact knocked the air from my lungs, a short, useless sound tearing out of me before my body understood what was happening. His hands were on my throat, not searching, not hesitating, closing. The world narrowed instantly. The fire blurred at the edges. The room tilted. I tried to inhale. Nothing came. This is how it happens. The thought wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was familiar. His voice reached me in pieces, broken, distorted, as if it had to travel through water to get to me. Look at you. You think this is what you wanted? The words didn't matter. The pressure did. My hands flew up instinctively, clawing at his wrists. Useless. They were iron. My feet slid against the floor as he pressed harder, pinning me completely, my spine locked against the wall. Air. I needed air. My vision began to dim at the edges, black creeping inward like a closing curtain. The sound in my ears grew louder, a rushing, roaring pulse that drowned everything else out. I tried to speak. Nothing came. Not a word, not a sound. Only vibration in my throat, where his hands were crushing everything that made me human. A flash of another wall, another pair of hands. Another time I had learned not to fight, because fighting only made it worse. I remembered the lesson clearly. Don't move. Don't provoke. Wait. But something was wrong. This time, waiting felt like dying. My knees buckled. For a split second, my weight sagged against him, and I felt it. The smallest shift. Not weakness. Opportunity. My body reacted before my mind could form a thought. My hand shot out blindly, grasping at the wall, the furniture, anything, and closed around something hard, uneven, cold. Antlers. There was no decision, no intention, no image of him dying. Only one command, louder than fear, louder than thought. Get him off. I swung. The movement was clumsy, desperate, fueled by panic and fading oxygen. I felt resistance, a jolt, a sound, sharp and wet, that didn't register until later. His hands loosened. Not slowly, not carefully. They slipped. Air crashed back into my lungs in a violent gasp, burning, tearing, overwhelming. I slid down the wall as my legs gave out, barely staying upright as I dragged in breath after breath, coughing, choking, alive. He staggered backward. One hand flew to his neck. His eyes were wide, not with pain alone, but with shock, with disbelief. You dared. That was what his face said. He didn't fall immediately. He stayed on his feet just long enough for me to see it clearly, the blood seeping between his fingers, the way his breath came unevenly, the way he stared at me as if I had shattered something sacred. Then he went down. All I knew was that he went down first. My knees followed a heartbeat later, trembling, barely holding me upright. The room spun. My hands shook violently now, slick with sweat, my chest still heaving as my body fought to catch up with itself. He was alive. I saw it. His chest moved. His gaze never left me, burning, furious, uncomprehending. And in that instant, that single, fragile instant, I understood something with perfect clarity. This was the only second I had. If he got back up, if he reached me again, there would be no antlers within reach next time. I pushed myself upright and ran. Not gracefully, not quietly. I turned and fled without looking back, my feet slipping on the floor as I tore through the room, past the fire, past the glowing television, past everything that had once pretended to be a home. The door flew open. Cold air hit my face like a slap. Snow. I hadn't remembered the snow. I ran. Down the steps. Across the yard. My breath tore out of me in ragged gasps, my lungs burning, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs open from the inside. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting him, certain he was behind me. Don't stop. Don't turn around. Just keep moving. The car came into view like a miracle. I fumbled with the door, hands shaking too badly to cooperate, panic clawing at my throat again as I imagined his fingers closing around me from behind. I got inside and slammed the door shut, locked it, breathing so hard it hurt. I didn't look back at the house. I didn't check the windows. I didn't wait to see what he would do. I started the engine and drove, because I knew one thing with absolute certainty. If I stopped, if I hesitated, I would not survive a second time. I didn't realize when the memory released me. One moment I was still running, lungs burning, snow biting into my face, the certainty of his hands still wrapped around my throat. And then I was back, standing in the hotel room, alone, breathing. The walls were still, the bed untouched, the world behaving as if nothing had happened. That was when I understood. I hadn't escaped the night. I had only stepped out of it. I finally remembered. Not the way you remember a story, not in neat scenes with clean edges. I remembered the way the body remembers. Weight, pressure, instinct, and the moment oxygen becomes more precious than dignity. I was still standing in my hotel room, still in the same place, as if the floor had kept me there on purpose, holding me upright while my mind fell apart. My hands were trembling now, not violently, not visibly, just enough that I could feel it in my fingertips, like a quiet electrical hum. My throat tightened when I swallowed. A dull soreness lingered under my scarf. Not fresh pain, but the echo of it. I pressed my palm against my chest, waiting for my heartbeat to slow. It didn't. It only changed its rhythm. Heavy, deliberate, like something knocking from the inside. I did that. The thought didn't come with guilt first. It came with disbelief. Because for hours, days, I had lived in a suspended state, half convinced it hadn't happened the way my fear insisted it had. And now the memory had returned, not as an idea, but as a fact. I moved to the edge of the bed and sat down carefully, as if sitting too fast would shatter whatever fragile piece of me was still pretending to function. My skin felt wrong, too tight in some places, too numb in others. My stomach rolled once, sharply, and then settled into a cold, hollow ache. I stared at my hands in my lap. They looked ordinary. Too ordinary. Those same hands had held his rifle, had reached blindly for antlers, had pushed a door open and then slammed it shut behind me. And still, they looked like the hands of a woman drinking hotel coffee in the morning, not the hands of someone who had crossed a line and could never uncross it. It didn't make sense. I forced myself to go over the sequence again. Not the ending, not the fall, not the blood, just the structure, the logic, the rifle. I remembered lowering it, placing it down. That detail was sharp now, sharper than anything else. The careful movement, the way I had set it on the wooden commode near the door. I hadn't run out with it. I hadn't taken it with me. I had left it there. And yet, when David spoke to me, when the station was full of paperwork and voices and questions, no one mentioned a rifle. No one asked where it was. No one said they had found it. If the police had found Robert's hunting rifle, it would have been the first thing they talked about. They wouldn't have treated it like a detail. They would have treated it like a weapon. But it never came up. Not once. My mouth went dry. Which meant someone else had been in that house. Not later, not days after, before the police sealed it, before forensics, before the story became official. Someone had been there and had removed it. I stared at the wall in front of me as if it might offer an explanation, but my mind wouldn't let me stop there, because the moment that thought formed, another one followed. Slow, inevitable. Why would someone take the rifle unless they needed it? My breathing became shallow again. Not panic, calculation. If someone took it, it wasn't to keep Robert safe. He didn't need protecting anymore. It was to protect themselves, or to erase something, or to create something. A question rose up inside me, one I hadn't allowed myself to ask until now. How exactly had he died? I had never asked. Not at the station, not when David told me, not when the words "found dead" turned the world into ash. I hadn't asked how, because part of me already knew the answer I deserved, because part of me didn't want the details to exist in spoken language. But now, the missing rifle turned the question into something else. If the rifle was gone, if the police didn't have it, if someone had removed it before anyone could document it, then it wasn't just evidence. It was a shadow. And shadows don't exist unless someone is standing between the truth and the light. My stomach tightened. What if he wasn't killed the way I thought? What if the antlers weren't the end of it? What if someone finished what I started, or made sure it looked like something else? I sat very still, letting the implications settle, one by one, like snow piling up where you don't notice it until it's too heavy. If someone else had been there, then this wasn't only my secret anymore. It was shared, and that was worse. Because secrets you carry alone are heavy, but secrets someone else holds over you are dangerous. I reached up and touched the edge of my scarf again. My fingers paused on the tender skin beneath it. Not now. I lowered my hand and stared at the ceiling, as if I could find a shape in the cracks that would tell me who had been in my house. But the ceiling stayed silent, and the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt occupied. I finally understood something I hadn't wanted to understand since the beginning. I wasn't just afraid of being caught. I was afraid of being used. Because if someone had removed that rifle, they had already made their first move. And I didn't even know I was playing. I closed my eyes and listened to the hotel room breathe around me. Someone else remembers what happened that night, and they might remember it better than I do.